celebration of 50 years of A Trick of the Tail, the Genesis album from 1976, released on February 13th of that year. So yes, it's a 50-year flashback. 50-year flashback. Now, unlike many of these episodes, be it 50-year flashback or random foreplay, which I'll explain in a moment, I don't know this album very well at all. I, in fact, have heard it once. And that was when Sean, at Reactions to the Classics, reviewed this album in full. And I watched and listened to that. But I won't be hearing it in full today. Oh no, I will be hearing exactly half of the album, 4 tracks out of the 8 possible ones. And as for what ones they're going to be, well, that's going to be where the random element comes in because, well, I'm going to throw the album on shuffle and pick from each hearing of songs as they come up and see where we go. Normally, I would know an album that I'm doing this with very well and make informed choices. But today, no. I do have a little bit of information on the songs and I'll hear the little intros of them to help me choose. But other than that, I'm pretty blind on this one. So definitely, as we go along in the comments, let me know if I'm making the right choices. I hope so, but you never can tell. Now, of course, this is the first album with Phil Collins on lead vocals. So I guess before we get started, we should have a wee competition.
Who was the lead singer of Genesis, great bunch of guys, personal friends of mine, a lot of good local charity, before Phil Collins? And I'll repeat that. Who was the lead singer of Genesis, great bunch of guys, personal friends of mine, a lot of good local charity, before Phil Collins? And answers on a postcard, please, to Peter Gabriel competition.
There we go, a bit of 90s sketch comedy silliness for you before we dive into the album proper. And yeah, I'm excited to see what comes up because I know a lot of Genesis, but from after this period, I don't really know very much early Genesis at all, which you might consider strange given that I am a massive Marillion fan. And for those who don't know Marillion, they were all massive fans of early Genesis, and early Marillion really played on early Genesis. It's true. They developed their own style and things from that point on, but the beginnings very much start here and earlier, I suppose. So, yeah, I did once own Selling England by the Pound on vinyl when I was a young lad, and didn't get on with it at all. I probably do need to revisit that at some point because, yeah, I had no clue about the fact that there was a pre-Phil Collins Genesis at that point. So it sounded very, very strange indeed. Yeah. Anyway, this album. Let's find a first track to listen to. Here we go. Okay, so my first choice is going to be between the title track, that's A Trick of the Tail, or Entangled. Okay, so I will head to Wikipedia to give me some slight clue as to which of these might be the one for me. So, A Trick of the Tail is a Tony Banks track, inspired by reading the novel The Inheritors by William Golding. I know Lord of the Flies, I don't know anything else by him at all. And Getting Better by the Beatles. I know Getting Better by the Beatles, and indeed every Beatles song. And wrote about an alien visiting Earth. When it came to selecting tracks for the album, he wanted to include something lighter and more quirky. Okay. The other option then is Entangled, which originated from a piece by Steve Hackett that Banks particularly liked, and he went on to write the chorus and closing synthesizer solo for the song. That's a lot of alliteration. Hackett also wrote the lyrics, which Collins, Phil, obviously, thought had a Mary Poppins feel to them. And Rutherford recalled that Hackett started writing verses which were very airy-fairy, and then he came down with a bang. Okay, I'm not sure that information helps. We've got light and quirky or Mary Poppins airy-fairy. Let's go with that. Why not? Let's kick off by being Entangled. Here we go. Right. Entangled. I'm not sure about Mary Poppins, but then again, I've never read Mary Poppins, and I only saw the film once when I was about 6. that's a long time ago. But this is more, it felt more folky, medieval almost, but not, because it's, you know, dealing with presumably a lunatic asylum of some kind. Um, but it's gorgeously done. The lovely acoustic guitar work is splendid. Phil sounds great. The synth solo-ish that took up the last couple of minutes, that might need to grow on me somewhat. It was all right. Probably went on a bit long for what it was. Yeah, I know Tony is kind of revered in Genesis circles in the same way that Steve Rothery is in Marillion circles. So I'm not casting shade at him, don't you worry. But yeah, that was my least favourite part of the song on this second listen. Um, but yeah, uh, I liked that quite a lot. Oh, and by the way, should have said before I started talking about it that the main video on YouTube won't have the songs in full because of copyright and length. People will get scared away by how long the video looks if I include all the songs in them. But there will be a link in the description below where you can listen to the songs with me if you so need to. Of course, most of you probably know these songs really well and don't necessarily need to hear them again, at least not now, but I always like people to have the option of the full immersive experience, so to speak. All right, so going to move on to a second choice from this album, possibly interrupted by a Spotify ad before we get to that. Let's find out. Here we go. No Spotify ads. Straight into Squonk as option 1, and option 2, Mad Man Moon. What is it about alliteration today? Okay, so what have we got on these two? Absolutely nothing on Mad Man Moon, but Squonk is based on the North American tale of the Squonk, which, when captured, dissolves in a pool of tears. The song combines a main theme written by Rutherford against a middle section written by Banks and was designed to sound like Led Zepp's Kashmir. So that sounds interesting, and it actually follows directly on from Entangled on the album. Mad Man Moon is the side closer of the same side, and as I see, just a Tony Banks composition. But I'm going to go with Squonk and see what we make of that. Okay, here we go. I think it's over. All right, Squonk. Well, I love pretty much everything about that one. Not convinced that it was that Led Zeppelin-y. I mean, I guess you can hear a bit of Kashmir in there, but it's hardly hard rock, is it? But at the same time, quite a bit more up-tempo and upbeat than Entangled, which we heard before. And the lyrics good, interesting, playing on mythology and legend, but not in a completely abstract, out of the realms of possibility way, like Yes might do, for example. And great vocal from Phil. I believe this is actually the song that he recorded the vocal for, and they just said, right, well, we've got our new lead singer, and it's you, whether you like it or not, pretty much. And as of course time would tell, that was a very good move, certainly commercially. Speaking of which, this was a pretty successful album at the time. No hit singles because this was pre that phase of the band, but made number 3 in the UK, which is, or at least was, the equal best at that point. 31 in the States, which was the best there, their first top 40 album there. And in Australasia, it was a game of two halves. My local New Zealand saw it get to number 4, whereas Australia, slow on the uptake, weren't you, Australia? Only made it to number 93. Yeah, they caught up eventually, but hey. Kiwis ahead of the curve as usual, and in fact it was the 26th or 27th biggest album of 1976 there. Anyway, some chart facts for you there for those who like them. I love them. And yeah, we're 2 songs in. I liked both of them. I think Squonk won it over Entangled for me because there wasn't a wasted second. They're both about the same length, 6.5 minutes-ish. And yeah, liking what I'm hearing, so let's hear some more. Track number 3 is going to be a choice between 2 more songs, and those will be Los Endos, or as you know it, the album closer, or Robbery, Assault and Battery. Okay, so the closing song, again, I'm back in my wiki notes here. Los Endos was written by the whole band. Phil came up with the basic rhythmic structure inspired by his work in side project Brand X, and Promise of a Fisherman by Santana, wanting to take the looser plain style into Genesis. Banks and Hackett wrote the main themes, including reprises of Dance on a Volcano, which we haven't heard, and Squonk, which we just did, and Collins sang a few lines from Supper's Ready on the fade out as a tribute and final goodbye to Gabriel. By contrast, option 2, Robbery, Assault and Battery, was mostly written by Banks in an attempt to replicate the humour in some of Gabriel's lyrics. Collins also contributed to the writing and sang the song in character, inspired by his earlier role as the Artful Dodger in Oliver before he became a professional musician. Okay, so does that mean we're getting Danny or his dodgy accent and Illegal Alien? Let me know if this is on a par with either of those 2 songs. I really hope not. But I'm not going to risk it. I'm going to go for what sounds like the more interesting of the 2 to me, which is Los Endos, which Spotify doesn't have the lyrics for, annoyingly, but maybe I don't need them. Maybe there aren't that many. I just don't know. Okay. We won't be ending here. We'll have one more to come after this, but for now, let's hear the ending of A Trick of the Tail, Los Endos. All right, long, slow fade out, and yeah, I mean, I guess most Genesis fans would know and recognise that that's a bit of Supper's Ready. I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't been told it. But I guess that's a very early Easter egg in some ways. Anyway, I am not always a massive fan of instrumentals. I like long epic songs with big instrumental sections, but something that's just music with no lyrics doesn't always do it for me. But yeah, I enjoyed that a lot. Interesting and dynamic, and some different sections, so it never stayed in one place for too long. Yeah, it's nice. I like it. I don't know if I should have been brave and gone for Robbery, Assault and Battery, but just that reference to him singing in character scared me away. So let me know whether that is one to avoid or not, because otherwise I'm liking everything that I'm hearing, but I'm only going to hear one more song. And well, you know what it's a choice between if you know this album, and even I know what it's a choice between because process of elimination and all that. But for argument's sake, let's go through the motions and see what order Spotify wants to offer them to me, and see if that influences my decision in any way. So obviously the first option is going to be the opening track, Dance on a Volcano. And the final option, Ripples. Okay, so Dance on the Volcano, of course, as I said, the opening track, written primarily by Rutherford, I think, who said that it was easy to write and was intended to show how Genesis would move forward, sans Gabriel. Whereas Ripples, which also happens to be the most streamed song on this album, although it's only got 10 million, so we're not talking massive numbers, are we? That was a combination of a 12-string guitar piece composed by Rutherford and a piano-led middle section written by Banks. Now, I have an idea that might have been my favourite track the first time I listened through to the album. So I'm going to go with it, even though it's the longest track here. It's just a shade over 8 minutes. I'm not afraid of an 8-minute song, my goodness. Yeah, let's end with, I think, a good one. I hope so. We'll find out. Here it is. Ripples.
Blue girls come in every size.
Alrighty. Well, that's the end of the music, so I can take these off. Hurrah! Right, Ripples, another great one. Points off for the fade out at the end. Why can't they just write a proper ending to a song? It's a regular bugbear of mine. I like songs to end, not drift away. Although I guess it's kind of thematic because they're just ripples that don't come back. I suppose, if I'm going to allow them some artistic license there. Anyway, as I was saying on Los Endos, which, by the way, I should point out, listening to it in this random fashion is strange. I know, I'm aware. It should be listened from start to finish, and then Los Endos is a perfect ending, I would think. With the way it interconnects some of the reprises of the previous songs and on that little farewell nod to Peter Gabriel. Anyway, as I said on that song, I'm not always mad about instrumentals on their own, but I like a good instrumental section in a longer song, and this was a great example of that. The interplay between Tony Banks and Tony Banks, respectively, on piano and synthesizer, and then Steve Haggett's guitar as well, was really the first time I properly noticed Steve on these tracks. I'm sure it's not the only time he's played significant parts, but I know he didn't contribute so much to this album because he just come out with a solo album, so it was probably a bit of an empty well in his writing pen, if that makes any sense at all. But yeah, tasty stuff all round, and I think a fine choice. But you let me know if I made the right ones and where this sits for you in the Genesis catalogue. I mean, I know pretty much everything from And Then There Were Three right up to We Can't Dance, which was my first Genesis album, which I had on cassette when it was brand new. And I liked it, but I thought it was a bit long. And I still think that. I still like every song on that. Well, I like 11 of the songs. I still can't really abide I Can't Dance itself, but the other poppy stuff is fine by me, and the longer stuff, great. Yeah, all of which is to say, I like a lot of Genesis and a lot of Genesis albums, but I don't really love that much. They don't get me wildly excited. But I also know a lot of fans do rate this as one of the, if not the best Genesis albums of the lot. And on this listening through half of it, most of me is thinking I should probably just get around to buying it and adding it to the collection as a whole, shouldn't I? Should I? And if I do, should I pick up Wind and Wuthering at the same time? Which, of course, will have its own anniversary later in the year, and I don't believe I've ever heard that at all. So, yeah, let me know. Let me know everything. Did you like my song selections? Did I make the right ones? Where does this sit? Should I buy it? All of these questions that I've asked and you can answer for me, hopefully. And if you want me on surer footing, which I am most of the time, well, you could subscribe to the channel and see all the other myriad of things that I've got, most of which I know very, very well. But I like to get experimental and out of my comfort zone at times and try some new stuff that's 50 years old from time to time, because it's never too late to learn and hear new things. That's my view anyway. So yeah, give us a subscribe, why don't you? And on that note, I will say thanks for watching today, and hopefully it is only bye for now, but not for long.
It's the end, but the moment has been prepared for.